Kia ora, and welcome to episode 11 in the series of short videos we're doing on a biblical response to COVID-19. A few days ago, my wife Rochelle and I were out for a walk, and as we were chatting while walking the dog, we were talking about some of the things we've actually enjoyed about the season of lockdown that we've been in New Zealand for the last 4 or 5 weeks. We were saying that amongst all the other things that has annoyed us and frustrated us, we've enjoyed things like just slowing down a little bit in terms of pace of life, and we've enjoyed just having more quality time with our kids and so on. And it was actually quite a powerful discussion just to sit or to walk and to reflect as we were walking about some of the things we were enjoying. And it was so helpful that when we got home again, I sat down in my office and I started writing out some reflection questions to help me think a little bit more deeply. And so I wrote some of these kind of questions down. What have you enjoyed during lockdown, which was the focus of our discussion that day? And what would you like to keep doing? What would you like to bring into normal life when normal life restarts again? And I wrote down, what have you missed during lockdown? And then conversely, what have you not missed? One of the things I've missed is just the ability to sit down across a table in a cafe over a coffee with a friend. I just had an email today from a friend that I haven't caught up with for a while, just saying it would be really great when we're able to again, to sit down and just catch up over a coffee. And then I wrote down, what have you learned during lockdown? What insights have you gained? And it was that question that got me actually then thinking even more deeply about not only the experience of lockdown, whatever that's looked like for you, but even more deeply, how do we reflect carefully and deeply on this whole episode around this pandemic? And so what's that's drawn out from me is this key biblical response I want to talk about today, which is to reflect well. To think deeply, reflect really well on this experience and this time and season, and think about our lives and the direction of our lives in terms of how we're living. And that's a really important thing to do. A few weeks ago, I was reading an article by a pastor in northern Italy, which was one of the key epicenters of the COVID pandemic. And this is what he wrote, or part of what he said in this article. He said, this global crisis is teaching us how weak we are as human beings. It's easy to forget, he said, but humans are weak and frail. And those words have stuck with me ever since I read them. And in these last few days, as I've been trying to reflect a little bit more carefully and deeply, I found those words take me to what is perhaps the oldest psalm in the book of Psalms in the Old Testament. It's Psalm 90. The superscription says it's a psalm of Moses, which I believe suggests that Moses is in fact the author of it, which would make it the oldest psalm in that book in the Bible. And this is the way this powerful psalm begins. Psalm 90 verses 1 and 2. Lord, you've been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. It's this powerful declaration, one of the most powerful declarations through the whole Bible about the fact that God is this eternal and infinite God. It's the celebration that He is our infinite Creator. But then you go a few verses on in Psalm 90 and you find this stunning contrast between God and us. So you come, for example, to verse 10, which says, our days may come to 70 years, or 80 if our strength endures, perhaps 100 for the odd person. Yet Moses says the best of those days are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. See, what's happening in Psalm 90 is Moses is reflecting on this stunning contrast between the Creator and us as creatures, between the fact that He is infinite and we are finite, that He is eternal and we are frail. It's this incredible reminder that God is the eternal one and we are nothing like Him. We are like, to use the words of James in the New Testament, we are like a mist that is here and then is gone. And so in light of that, a couple of verses later in Psalm 90, Moses prays this, teach us, Lord, to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Lord, help us to live, he's saying, in light of the finiteness and frailty of our lives. I love what one scholar, James Montgomery Boyce, wrote about this verse. He said, of all the mathematical disciplines, this is the hardest in life, to number our days. We count everything else, he says, but we do not seem able to use our days rightly and with wisdom. And I think he's right. And that's why Moses prays this stunning prayer in light of this incredible contrast between the eternal, infinite Creator and us as finite and frail creatures. He's praying, Lord, help us to recognize the difference between us and you, and help us to live in light of our frailty and our finiteness. He's really saying, Lord, help us to reflect well. And I want to suggest that this COVID-19 pandemic has been a unique opportunity for us to do exactly that, to reflect well, to number our days. Because it's been a stunning reminder that this tiny virus, this microscopic organism that we can't even see with our eye, is so powerful it has brought the globe to a standstill. And if ever there was a reminder to us that we are not as powerful as we think we are, we're not as amazing as human beings as we think we are, this pandemic has given it to us. So what does it look like to reflect well? What does it look like to stop and really think about the eternal God and about us as finite creatures? What I want to do is suggest 4 reflection questions that flow out of Psalm 90, 2 of them based on who God is and 2 of them based on who we are. And I just want to leave these questions for you to reflect on in these coming days. The first question is this: to what extent is God my refuge? You see, we've already read verse 1 where the psalm begins that God, you are my dwelling place. In other words, you are my refuge. You are the one that I run to and hide to in times of difficulty. Probably writing at a similar time, Moses wrote in Deuteronomy 33, the eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And so the first reflection question I want to suggest to us is, to what extent has that actually been true? What is that? How true has that been over these last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks in our lives? How much have we trusted in God and run to God as our refuge? To what extent is that true for us? And then the second question comes from verse 14. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love. It's another prayer. That we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. This verse reminds me of the Rolling Stones song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. And just this reminder that flows particularly out of the book of Ecclesiastes. We were in for another teaching video, that we so often look for all of these other things and other places for satisfaction and meaning and purpose in life. And Moses says, in light of our frailty and finiteness, Lord, help us remember that our satisfaction comes in you. So to what extent is God our refuge, but then to what extent is God my delight? To what extent do I find my meaning and my purpose and my satisfaction in God alone, this eternal, infinite Creator? And then 2 questions that flow out of who we are. The first one is, to what extent am I ready for eternity? See, verse 8 is incredibly powerful in Psalm 90. It says, you have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. The Bible makes it clear that whatever frail and short life we live, at the end of time, every one of us is going to stand before our all-knowing Creator God. We're going to give an account for our lives, and everything is going to be exposed. God's seen it all, even the thoughts and the hidden words we've said in secret. God knows it all. And this is a reminder to us that we need to live in light of eternity, and that means trusting in Jesus and bringing our sins and our failures to Him, because He is the one who has taken care of them on the cross. And so that's a key question. Am I ready for eternity? But then the psalm also challenges us, to what extent am I living for eternity? Because the psalm ends with one final powerful prayer in verse 17. May the favour of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, Lord, establish the work of our hands. The prayer is, Lord, help my life to mean something. Help it to have an impact. Help my life to to have some kind of legacy and significance to it, because only you as the eternal God can bring that kind of thing out of my life. I think Moses is here pushing into what Jesus would later say in the Sermon on the Mount. We can either store up our treasure in heaven or on earth. And Moses is praying and saying, God, would you help me to live in light of eternity and live my life in such a way that the way I share you and minister to people and give generously, I'm having an impact in living for eternity. Friends, these are 4 powerful questions to reflect on. And we would do well, in light of the reminder of our frailty and finiteness that this COVID-19 pandemic has given us, to reflect deeply on our lives. And so I leave these questions with you, with an invitation to not lose the opportunity this pandemic gives us. Let's stop, let's slow down, and let's reflect well in light of eternity. God bless.